The war had taken everything from Queen Zithra, time, trust, and the fragile illusion that her empire was unshakable. 4 cycles uncounted, she had ruled the Zyrathian dominion with absolute precision. Her kind was feared across star systems, cold, calculating, and utterly incapable of emotional attachment. Even among her own people, Zithra was considered distant, almost mechanical in her leadership. So when she gave birth to quadruplets, 4 fragile heirs to her throne, the galaxy whispered. Not because she had children, but because she kept them. For a brief moment, the queen withdrew from the political stage. She studied them, observed them, ensured their survival. But war does not wait for maternal curiosity. A rebellion rose in the outer sectors. Entire colonies declared independence. Trade routes collapsed. Assassination attempts increased. The Dominion needed its queen. And so, Zithra made a decision. She would leave. The palace caretaker protocols required a replacement. Someone expendable, unnoticed, and easily controlled. Someone with no political ties and no threat potential. A human. They were new to the galactic stage. Weak, short-lived, and utterly irrelevant. At least that's what the Dominion believed. The selection system chose a man named Elias Ward. Occupation: janitor. Clearance level: minimal. Psychological profile: compliant, quiet, emotionally stable. Perfect. He was transported to the palace with no explanation beyond a simple directive. Maintain environmental conditions. Ensure biological stability of royal offspring. Do not interfere beyond assigned parameters. Elias didn't argue. Humans, after all, knew how to survive. At first, Elias treated the task like any other job. Clean the halls. Monitor the systems. Stay invisible. But the children, they weren't like anything he had ever seen. Each of the 4 infants shimmered with faint bioluminescence, their skin reflecting soft hues of violet and blue. Their eyes, far too intelligent for newborns, tracked movement with eerie precision. And yet, they cried. Not loudly, not chaotically, but softly, almost thoughtfully. Elias noticed it during his 3rd shift. One of them, he would later call her Lyra, was making a faint clicking sound, her small limbs twitching as if searching. The automated care system adjusted temperature, administered nutrients. But she didn't stop. Elias stood there for a long time. Then, hesitantly, he stepped closer. This probably isn't in my job description, he muttered. But something about the sound tugged at him. Slowly, carefully, he reached into the containment cradle and lifted her. The moment he did, she went silent. That was the beginning. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. The rebellion raged on and the queen never returned. And Elias stopped being just a janitor. He learned quickly. The automated systems kept the children alive, but they didn't raise them. They didn't respond to subtle distress. Didn't adapt. Didn't comfort. So Elias did. He started naming them. Lyra, the quiet observer. Kale, the restless one. Vera, the curious explorer. Orin, the smallest but the most perceptive. He spoke to them constantly. At first it felt ridiculous. You guys probably don't even understand me, he said one day, bouncing Kale gently. But hey, I don't understand half of what you are either, so I guess we're even. Kale made a soft chirping noise in response. Elias laughed. Yeah, that's what I thought. Over time, something unusual began to happen. The children started responding. Not just biologically, but emotionally. They recognized him, reached for him, waited for him. Lyra would quiet instantly at the sound of his voice. Kale would only settle when Elias held him. Vera followed him around once she learned to crawl, ignoring the advanced hover platforms designed for her species. And Orin watched, always watching. Elias didn't notice how much he had changed until one night. The palace lights dimmed to simulate rest cycles. The children were asleep. And Elias sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, exhausted. I wasn't supposed to care, you know, he said softly. No one answered. I was just supposed to clean, fix things, stay out of the way. He looked at them, 4 alien heirs to a throne he couldn't even comprehend. But I guess That's not how it works. Lyra stirred slightly in her sleep. Elias smiled. Yeah, not how it works at all. The years passed. The war ended. Queen Zithra returned without announcement. Her fleet entered orbit silently. Her shuttle descended into the palace without ceremony. She expected efficiency, order, compliance. What she did not expect was disruption. The first sign was the silence. The palace should have been operating under strict protocol, sterile, controlled, predictable. Instead, there was laughter. Zithra froze. Her guards stiffened behind her. That sound, one of them whispered. It's emotional. Zithra said nothing. She moved forward. The nursery doors opened, and everything she believed shattered. The room was chaos, not disorder, life. Bright, improvised decorations hung along the walls. Tools and devices, clearly modified, sat alongside standard Dominion technology. The sterile white floors were marked with color patterns, drawn in unfamiliar pigments. And in the center of it all, a human, sitting cross-legged, surrounded by her children. Lyra was perched on his shoulder, her bioluminescence pulsing softly in rhythm with his breathing. Kale was tugging at his sleeve, making excited clicking noises. Vera was attempting to stack objects, clearly mimicking something Elias had shown her. And Oren looked directly at the door. At her. Hey, Elias said, not yet noticing who had entered. Careful with that, Vera. Last time you stacked those, we almost... He stopped. Slowly he turned. And saw her. Queen Zithra. The room fell silent. The children turned toward the door. For a moment no one moved. Elias stood up slowly, instinctively placing himself between the queen and the children. Not aggressively, but protectively. I assume you're their mother, he said carefully. The guards raised their weapons. Zithra lifted a hand. They froze. Her gaze moved past Elias. To the children. They were different, stronger, more active, more aware. But that wasn't what unsettled her. It was how they looked at the human. Lyra clung tighter to Elias. Kale moved closer to him. Vera reached for his hand. And Oren simply watched. You have interfered, Zithra said, her voice cold. Elias swallowed. Yeah, probably. You were given strict instructions. I know. And yet you chose to disobey them. Elias hesitated, then nodded. Yeah. The guards shifted, waiting for the command. Execution would be immediate, efficient, expected. But Zithra did not give the order. Why? She asked. Elias looked at the children, then back at her. Because they needed more than machines, he said simply. They needed someone. Silence. Zithra stepped forward. The children reacted instantly. They moved closer to Elias. Even Oren shifted slightly. The queen stopped. That had never happened before. They fear me, she observed. Elias shook his head. No, he said quietly. They don't know you. The word struck harder than any weapon. Zithra looked at them again. Her heirs. Her legacy. And they did not recognize her. Lyra tilted her head. Slowly, cautiously, she reached out. Not to the queen, but to Elias. Something broke. Not visibly. Not dramatically. But inside her, something shifted. You have altered them, Zithra said. Elias met her gaze. No, he said. I raised them. Another long silence. The guards waited. The children watched. The human stood his ground. Finally, Zithra spoke. Explain. And so he did. He told her everything. The crying. The silence. The way the machines failed to respond. The way the children adapted. Learned. Grew. He told her about Lyra's quiet curiosity. Kale's energy. Vera's determination. Oren's watchful intelligence. He told her about the first time they laughed. The first time they reached for him. The first time they chose him. They're not just heirs, Elias said at the end. They're kids. Zithra said nothing. She simply watched. Then slowly, she knelt. The guards froze in shock. The queen of the Dominion, kneeling? Lyra hesitated. Then cautiously she stepped forward. Zithra remained still. Lyra reached out. Her small glowing hand touched the Queen's. And for the first time in her existence, Queen Zithra felt something she could not quantify. Warmth. Kale followed. Then Vera. Even Orin after a moment. They did not fear her. Not anymore. But they did not cling to her either. They stood between her and Elias. Zithra looked at the human. Truly looked. You have done what my entire empire could not, she said quietly. Elias blinked. I just took care of them. No, she replied. You understood them. Another pause. Then something unexpected. Stay. Elias frowned. What? Remain, Zithra said. Continue your role. The guards stared in disbelief. You're not firing me? Elias asked. Zithra almost smiled. You are no longer a janitor. She looked at her children. At the way they stood. The way they lived. You are their guardian. Elias exhaled slowly. Yeah, he said. I guess I am. And for the first time in the history of the Dominion, a human stood not as a servant, not as a subject, but as something far more powerful. Family.